Welcome to the fourth episode of Kentucky Go Digital Live. We are in our first episode of our October series and our fourth episode overall. The October series we are starting is called Creating a Digital Infrastructure to Organize Your School. My name is Courtney Drossett, and I'm the Chief Information Officer of Floyd County Schools, and I am so honored to be leading this today. We are very excited because we will be highlighting Google Classroom and how this tool can help create that digital infrastructure within your team in your schools. We just wrapped up the first series on the Kentucky Go Digital Live channel. That was the instructional coaching, feedback, and evaluation. We had three awesome principals. We had Brittany Nickel, Wes Bradley, Chase Goff, and if you missed it, please check it out when you have time. They are amazing, and they are all listed on this Kentucky Go Digital Live YouTube channel. I am joined today by our awesome Kentucky Go Digital Live team. We have Heather Warrell, the digital learning coach, Kentucky Office of Education Technology, and the original Kentucky Purple Cow. We have Elaine Abanatha, the Technology Integration Specialist for McCracken County Schools. She is working on her fall break. She is actually in the middle of a run and joining in, so she gets major points. And Brooke Whitlow will be dropping in. She is in Indiana right now, dropping some Kentucky love and spreading some tools, working on 6 sessions right now. She is the Instructional Technology Coordinator of Hardin County Schools and may be popping in. Hi, girls.
Hey, Courtney, so excited for you to lead this show today. And Elaine, you are a rock star working. I think you're running in a race today or something, right?
Yeah, I am running the Kentucky Bourbon Chase, and this is my first this year, so I'm super excited, but I could not wait to find out all the stuff that Ben has for us, so I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yes, Elaine is working during her fall break. She's a trooper. Gotta love that. Hey, Ben.
What's up? How you doing, teammate?
Ben, I'm thrilled. I know everyone watching is thrilled to see what you have to teach us today about Google Classroom. So take it away.
All right. Well, I feel a little bit, I'm definitely humbled to be here. I honestly feel like I have about 0 to share, but it's being around folks like you guys that are out there. You guys are just killing it. And it's so fun to work with you and be a part of what's going on. I will share some of our story of what we did while I was at Summit Elementary, is where I just left. I was there for 3 years. I was an assistant principal for 3 years. I've been a TRT/CIO. I've been a varsity head coach. I've an STLP coordinator. I've done a little bit of all of it, and so I think that gave me some pretty unique perspective on the principal chair. And really, and how a digital infrastructure could be utilized for teaching and learning. It took a little bit of time for that to unfold. As most principals know, things don't happen as quickly as we want them to. That's for sure. There's restraints and red tape, and sometimes just people aren't ready for things. And so, but we were well on our way to some good things, and ultimately this year, churned out some pretty good progress as far as accountability goes. So, and I attribute a lot of that to some of the work that just everybody in the building was able to do. So ultimately, I want to share with you just some of the story, because really what I love about the KY Go Digital, what I love about it is it's not so much tools. Like literally, I created a Google Classroom in 12 seconds this morning. Like it takes no time. But sometimes I was the type of person that I needed to get some inspiration, talk out things and see things, and really then I could go from there. And
Ben,
really,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I know briefly I kind of skimmed through all that, how awesome you are and all the levels you've served in. Is this something that every level, elementary, middle, and high, a principal can do with their staff? I know that you have literally walked the walk and you have talked the talk on teacher, technology, assistant principal, principal, CIO. But if I'm that principal at every level, can every principal use this?
I think without a doubt. There are other tools there, and what's great is we're highlighting Google Classroom today. But literally, I was in the district I worked in. I was good teammates with our high school and middle school folks, and it's really something that, you know, it can be utilized a little differently in each place. I know when Heather does phase one, talk a little about some of the tools that they used at her school, and you know, you can utilize them for different things, but the premise and the idea and the motive behind it all is still the same. So there's no building, there's no level in your district that could not utilize this to move things forward.
Okay, awesome.
Like I said, I did come from an elementary. Like I said, I'd spent some time in some other buildings, and so what I love about this is that it is, you know, like it encompasses all levels, but it really is more about a mindset than it is tools, more than anything. And so when I started using Google Classroom, it wasn't because I thought it was the greatest tool available, even though I love it and I still love it, and I'm getting ready to use it for 2 research projects that we're doing now. But I wasn't after a tool. I was after something to perpetuate a growth mindset, collaboration, relationships. And ultimately what it boiled down to was teaching and learning. You know, until I'm one of those folks that sometimes until I see it, I don't believe it. And so, you know, for some folks and principals, I know we have there's a lot of pressure with accountability. Like, do you really have the time to invest all this time, energy, and money into learning tools when ultimately the only thing that you're judged on by some people are what comes out at the end of September, 1st of October every year. And so that was a mindset that I had to change.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think especially right now, that's how people are torn. I mean, we have a great opportunity, a new accountability system. So, hey, you know, I'm glad you brought that up.
And honestly, I think the new system lends itself more to this type of mindset. It just really does. And so I think there's not a better time than if you've never done anything like this as a principal. Now's the time. Now's the time. You have interim, you know, accountability this year. So you have a year to kind of get your feet underneath you and feel good about the direction this is going. And honestly, give you some proof that, hey, these things matter for learning for students. They absolutely do. And what I was really shocked was how much it matters for teacher learning. We way undersell the value of teachers being able to learn at their own pace and their own way. We expect them to do that for students, but we don't provide them a channel to do that themselves as professionals.
Yep.
So this technology piece allowed me to start doing that. And I think among several things, it's one thing that really hastened the process for us when it comes to this ultimately. So I love this movement. I love that you're on with me. I love that I get to be here. And so let me tell you just a little bit about my story. And are you keeping a call on me because I talk way too long?
No, you're fine. We're excited.
Just making sure. So I was at Summit Elementary for 3 years, 3 years total, just came out. And so, you know, year one, you know, as a principal, hopefully, you know, there's some newbie or just year or two principals that end up watching or listening to this, because year one is fun. I had the best time. I had never been at an elementary school. I'd always been middle and high school. If you're a middle school person, like, you know, the Lord has a special place for you, because not everybody loves those children. And if you do, you are super special. And those are still among some of my favorite kids that I've ever been a part of. I've coached them. I've done several things with them. I love them. But high school, you know, high school is certainly presents its challenges as well. But elementary was a place I hadn't been to. Now, one thing that accelerated my learning curve was, guess what? I have a 9 and a 7-year-old currently. So when I started that job, they were like 6 and 5. And so I was living elementary school all day long for just every day. So But year one, you evaluate as a principal. You know, that was fun because I had 500 kids to get to know. I had, 50 staff members to get to know. I had a community and sets of parents. And so that was really a fun time. Honestly, it was one of my best years in education. But as a part of all that, I mean, you want to evaluate, processes that are going on in the building, and you obviously want to be able to evaluate some of the culture that's happening. What have you stepped into? What are we doing and how are we doing it? But the culture piece for me was, why are we doing it? Was the big thing. So everything for me with a fresh set of eyes was, well, why do we do this? Not in a bad way, but like, why do we do it? Let's revisit. Why do we do anything? So there were some things even the first 2 years that were like, nobody knows why we're doing this, so let's not do it anymore.
That's a great point, and I hate to keep interrupting you, but I'm like amening you, because that reminds me of when Wes Bradley would talk about compliance. If we're doing it just for compliance, then that's kind of, that should not be the ceiling, that should be the floor. So yeah, I think that these tools are definitely going to give some people some guidance. So we're excited to see what you've got.
So really, once you kind of look at some of the I learned a lot that first year. I mean, I learned that elementary is the best, probably ultimately because a lot of reasons, but ultimately because there was like cupcakes in my building every day. Like some parent was delivering a set of cupcakes every day. Mr. Maynard, kids actually like to learn. Like you could walk in classrooms and be like, can I do more of this? And can I do, so that was a little different. Parents like to be involved and sometimes too much. That was pretty fun. And then I did realize this, and hopefully, being a high school teacher, I'm tossing a big arrow right at me, but there's nobody that works harder than an elementary teacher. They just don't. And so that was really inspiring for me. So, but I noticed as part of that hard work, like our workflow was not good. I would drive by school or stop in school on Sunday, and like there would be like 10 cars in the parking lot. Like, working on lesson plans.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, come on. What's up, man? And so, I would drive by and like they were spending way too much of their time on things that didn't matter all the time. Does lesson plans matter? Yeah, I would never say that they don't, but they were a very stagnant, Monday through Friday. I learned to type on an old typewriter with correction tape and all that good stuff. And that's what it reminded me of. It was, and then on Friday, swipe it back to Monday and start again. And so where that started to show up was we had big gaps in learning for some of our populations. And that became a focus. And so I'd been in the business for 12 years. I'd walked into faculty meetings and things like, well, here's our problem and here's the program or tool we're going to use to fix it. Okay. I never saw any of that work ever. And so I thought there's got to be a deeper reason to do this. So through all of that year one learning, I got to year two and ultimately figured out that people, and I use this all the time and it's stupid, but people are people first, just bottom line. And so our teachers had families and they cared about their kids in their classroom. Our students in the building are people, and we were concerned about how they were learning and why they were learning. And so really, we kind of tossed some things out the window to get back to the roots of it all. It's like, what do we really envision learning to look like? Not only for students, and not because of accountability reasons only, but because it's the most important thing. But also, too, we can't feel prepared as teachers and educators and staff members, adults in the building to help all kids until we focus on our own learning. And so the growth mindset push for us, we did a little book study, and just getting back to the roots of it all. So that's really where our use of Google Drive, Google Classroom, that's really where it came about, was let's improve workflow. Let's ditch the things that stink and let's save time for the stuff that really will improve our workflow. And so I'll give you this too, and I mentioned this to you guys earlier this week, but I was a younger principal and I inherited kind of a younger staff. We would have 3 or 4 teachers in each PLC team. And honestly, every team had somebody that was practically brand new or had definitely less than 7 years experience. And I was thinking back, when you start looking at evaluating teaching and learning processes and what that looks like when you go in the classroom, like we had varying levels of experience and knowledge. And when it comes to being part of a PLC and learning and growing together, like honestly, we had very much a hierarchical system set up. And not only that, but they were meeting for days a week with nothing to meet about. They didn't know what to meet about. And so to me, that was a waste of time. And so we wanted to really revisit what it meant to be a team, what our priorities were to focus on. And so Classroom and Drive gave me the vehicle to do that. It was like, hey, if we want to focus on these things and do it faster, here's a way to do it. And so it really accelerated our team building. It really accelerated conversations about what we look at and why we look at it. If we're looking at it and it doesn't make any sense to us, then we probably need to think about maybe not looking at it.
So, Ben, I'm really excited to see components of your Google Classroom. And also Chase Goff from Caverna Independent just chimed in with a question that I think is pertinent at this time as you make that point. He wants to know, so as you prepared to launch the Google Classroom with your staff, how comfortable was your staff initially?
Varying levels. It looked like a teacher's classroom. You had some kids that were, above the curve. You had some people in the middle, and you had some teachers that were going to be really resistant. And as a principal, you tend to always focus on the ones that will be resistant, and rightfully so. But what I was able to do, I was able to meet with my DTC. Literally, when I launched Classroom, she and I met for about 30 minutes. And she kind of ran over some of the nuts and bolts of what to do. And honestly, without that, I don't think I could have done it. She was a great resource and piece for our building to kind of get this going. So I said this in phase 3 in June. Principals, your DTC needs to be your best friend. Like birthdays, anniversaries, remember all that, because literally, if you want any kind of technology infrastructure, you can't do this alone, and you should not do it alone. You need to involve them in some of these steps, even if it's just an FYI, but they have knowledge and access to things that you need. So I really think you need to involve them. So she and I talked about 30 minutes, and I had to think of, I really developed a 3-year phase in plan, where do we start, where do we go in year 2, and how it's going to kind of wind up on year 3. And so definitely some resistance, some early adopters. So what I started to do, feed the early adopters, let them learn how to make mistakes, let them blaze that trail so that they've answered a lot of the questions that are going to come from some other groups that are within the building. I did a lot of the training. Principals, you need to be comfortable being the lead learner on this. It builds, you guys are learning it together. You break down some of the structure on boss and employee, because that's not what we want it to be. Yeah, are there procedural and personnel things? Yeah, we deal with that. But we became learners together. And when we did that, it really created a model for teachers being learners together with students. And so that's what I wanted to model. Ultimately, in the end, I really wanted to use Classroom because we had just been through phase 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to plug our trainings there shamelessly. But I wanted them to see, really, because sometimes we grab this tool, and really this was kind of everything in a box for us to be able to move forward. So I wanted us to be able to do that. So I was really wanted to model with Classroom what I wanted to see them do with students. And so,
awesome. So Ben, we have Dr. McCoy from JCPS joining us. Shout out to him. We have Miss Brandy Hahn from Lincoln County tuning in during her fall break, following that on the Kentucky Go Digital hashtag. And I know everyone is eager to see your Google Classroom. So can you show us some of the systems that you connected to us and take us there?
I can, and it's going to be really simple. So I know I'm hitting 4th in this lineup, and you think of the home run hitter when you hit 4th, but I'm going to tell you right now, I created a new classroom, like I told earlier, 12 seconds today. So I'm going to flip to something real quick here. Because what I want you to see is how easy it is to actually get to Classroom. If you're logged in, single sign-on is taking care of all that for us. If you're logged into Chrome, you're already logged in, the ability to be able to bring up your Classroom and make it. So it becomes really simple. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick. I'm gonna show you how to get to it. In about 15 seconds, we'll make a Classroom, and I'll talk about a couple of pieces that you need to see. So share my screen here. Do that. New tab. Couple of ways to go, guys. Here's the deal. You can either go to classroom.google.com, but if you're already logged in like me in my ugly profile photo, you can go to here, go to your waffle, and remember, you see all of these things. Just click on Classroom. So boom, it brings everything up. I've already created one classroom today, Bright Bites cohort. I'm going to create another one for you right now. So when you come up to this screen, basically this is what it is. You have the ability here to create or join a class. So honestly, you can create a class here. And what I want to do, show you how to create that real quick. Literally, you name it and click create. And how super simple. And of course, Google thinks of everything, so it leads you right through it. So you just created a classroom in a matter of 10 seconds. Now I'm going to back up in a few minutes and show you how to add a few things. But here's where we started. I'm going to flip to this screen here. I don't know how well you can see those. But what we did in Drive was that, let me back up to there, Wildcat Nation. I mean, that was it. There were 3 tabs. Basically what we did, I essentially used the About tab most because we wanted to be able to put documents that they needed access to. I was tired of getting emails that I had to hunt through and find. They were tired of, I would get the question about pre-observation documents all the time, like where are they? And eventually it was just like, hey, remember, this is where they are. I'd be glad to help you get there, but no, I'm not resending them an email because I don't even know where they are at this point. So it became, the About section became a catch-all for all of our schedules, for all of our travel documents. So that was a one-stop shop. It changed their workflow out of email and from their desktop of their computer to this place where they could access it anywhere, anytime. And what I noticed then was I quit getting questions about them. Not only that, but folks were no longer showing up at odd hours to access things. They had access to it anywhere. So it changed our workflow and the way we thought about that for sure. As part of that, there's a way to do it, but I wanted to introduce Google Drive to them. And so what I did was, in addition to that, we were learning Classroom and Drive at the same time. So what I was able to do was, through PLCs to hasten some of the learning process and data conversations and sharing, because we were in silos, Heather, to borrow one of your words, and with a hierarchical structure in PLCs that existed, like, if you were a young teacher, you just did what you were told. And this really utilized a lot of things. And so that's just a quick snapshot of like 4th grade PLCs Drive. I created a shared folder for each one that they had access to and I had access to. Lesson plans went there, PLC notes were in there. And so I could be present digitally because with so many things going on, I couldn't be at PLCs every day of every week. And so this gave me a chance to be able to work digitally from ball games or whatever, to be able to provide feedback and answers this way. And so I sent 1 email a week, and it had to be an emergency before I sent a second one because a lot of our workflow moved right here. So that was a huge shift for us, but they really grabbed it, and it gave footholds for some of our younger teachers because they became, the folks that grabbed a hold of it and were able to, have some expertise inside of PLC. And I think it made a big difference for them, for sure. So it was real simple. it was honestly very simple, and it was done that way for a reason, to be honest, because it was a way to model and get them comfortable. And those that were able to run with it, I could take them like a student that is ready for some other things and be able to do that on the side. And so, yeah, it helped to be able to step in that way. And like I said, it was set up for a 3-year plan, and we were just entering year 2. So they've had to reboot with a new principal, but I went over every bit of that with him. And I think that they're still doing some of it for sure.
So you could put your bus duty schedule or a ball game duty schedule up, and if someone absent that day, they could ultimately exchange dates. And as a principal, you would still know who was going to be there, right? It allowed that type of flexibility. I mean, were those different types of documents that you could put in there besides, plans? Oh, wait a second. There we go.
Especially on Classroom, that became their one-stop shop to be able to access some of those, because the bus schedule, I would make it and then it would change on the second day. So instead of one more email and then them pulling up the wrong email and printing out the wrong thing, they get to access it on their phone. In faculty meeting, I showed them how to download the app, and you can access it from here. So they would have it in bus line ready to go.
I think that's a great way to show you. In the faculty meeting, you downloaded the app and you walk them through how they could utilize that tool, while they're picking their kids up from soccer practice. That's a great tip. If you're watching this and you're a principal, have them do it right there in that meeting, so they have access and they know.
We use the about section for a lot of those go-to documents. One of the things we started to transition to was using Classroom for like committee work. I think probably every building in the state has a policy related to committees and your committee structure. Well, committee work in my 12 years before becoming administrator was not my most enjoyable thing. And so we had to do it. But the interesting thing is we found a reason to do it. When we started to get back to some of the why we do what we do, we had some actually productive things to work on. And they found themselves wanting to work on things outside of just the meeting. And given time constraints of having young families or different things, we started to move a lot of that work to Google Classroom, because I can post an assignment for a committee. Hey, policy committee, Site-Based would like for you to look at this by this time. And so that became another channel for communication and collaboration. So they could work on it after the kids go to bed at 9:30. They could work on it during planning. They could be anywhere, anytime to have access. And it really broke down some barriers for our learning and moved us forward a lot faster.
Ben, Brandy Hahn, who's a principal in Lincoln County, has a question for you. First of all, she wants you to know that she's learning from the teachers that are using Google Classroom, because many of them are the pros. That's the first comment she had. And then she had a question. She wants to know, so you were using shared folders or a team drive, which I don't think team drive existed back when you were a principal, but so you use shared folders. Were you using those shared folders for collaboration and the classroom for more of a warehouse? That's her question.
Both. I will answer it that way, because I wanted them to see that you can use the tools any way that you want them, but ultimately inside the classroom, they were going to use Classroom more with their kids than probably Drive. So I use the about section for the warehouse, just like that they would for like a syllabus, that you post that they can refer back to, and you don't have to ask for 15 copies. But also too, we were able to start using the stream in order to post assignments, do some communication around book studies, that type of thing. Committee work became a very convenient place to do that. Now, as far as comfortability, to get back to Chase's question, this kind of addresses that. Some of the stuff I wasn't comfortable putting on Classroom just yet. Not that I wasn't, I just knew that they weren't. Like stuff related to like evaluations, those things I wanted to keep in a folder between me and them, but they didn't have to run up and make a copy of their evaluation form, put it in my box and do it. So we eliminated some of that messiness of that workflow. We were able to do a lot of that virtually through that process. And then also the PLC folders were won't call them a warehouse, but they were a place for us to work digitally together on, lesson plans, on just different, especially assessment like data. It really changed our conversations due to the access that we could have. They stopped thinking about their classroom as only their kids, but the entire grade level is like, how can I help you attack this? And this is the gap that this group has. How can we attack that together? So they started making folders together, like, hey, I'll dump all the math assessments in here. Let's go over those tomorrow. So it really broke down the barriers and the hierarchy, I think, of the PLC. So I used to drive mostly for that as opposed to classroom, but there are some things the classroom could have done there for sure. And it's what I was telling Courtney. It's kind of a blank slate. Build it to meet the needs of your building. Build it to meet the needs of your people, because you know them best. And like you say, if you're learning from your teachers, that's not a bad place to be in either. It's really not, because there's a lot of things I learned from some of our teachers, and we learned together on some others.
Right. And I see, so Marty Park, Dr. Park has jumped into our Google Hangout. For those of you who don't know Dr. Park, he is our Chief Digital Officer here at KDE. And so, Dr. Park, would you like to chime in? You really coined the phrase 4 years ago, the term digital workflow. I had never heard of the term digital workflow. And after you said, hey, Heather, you guys have some pretty good digital workflow out there at Thomas Nelson, I did a Google search for digital workflow and could not find it anywhere. So you really coined that phrase. Could you talk to us a little bit about what you mean when you say digital workflow?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you can hear me okay. In a rather public place, just accidentally sat underneath a sign that says dream big, so that happened somehow. But no, absolutely. And this is what we're doing right now actually helps define digital workflow. How are we connecting together? And of course, greatly connecting digital workflow is digital relationship. And it's how we're all connecting together. We all collectively push our learning forward a lot further and a lot faster than we can by ourselves. And so our workflow, our digital workflow that we decide to embrace, attend to create, can help build efficiencies and help make things possible. I like to think about the art of the possible. And so our digital workflow really helps define the art of the possible for us, I think, especially as we are in the same time at the same place with each other and with our students. And so the question that I had for Ben, that you spoke to a little bit, but I'm always interested in learning from other folks on, from a school leader, from a leadership perspective, when you engage with your teachers in a new way, in a way that maybe they had never thought of before, and built some efficiencies into that process, leveraging digital tools and resources. How quickly did you see that impact what your teachers were reimagining with their students? And so get directly to, if you can, speak to the learning experiences that your teachers were then designing for students. And I think we all can learn from that and share. So can you speak to that?
I can. Good question, because that's really probably the crux of what I should have been getting to from the beginning. So good news is one of the things I saw year one was we had large gaps. We weren't pushing some of our kids that we could, and we were not being real time enough to meet some needs on some others, really the entire population. And so I knew that these tools would give us the flexibility to be able to do that. I can think of areas such as fifth grade, when we started incorporating Google Classroom, kids were able to get, really more timely feedback. They were able to be able to, teacher was providing more resources at a faster pace. And so we were meeting needs faster. And I'll give you just one of the first places that really took off with this was our special ed department. One of the first things I did is I put, my special ed director was super happy. I bought 4 Chromebooks out of my money and gave them to special ed teachers. And she's like, nobody ever does that. And I was like, well, guess what? They need them and they need them now. And so we had some miserable like percentages there as far as accountability goes, and we just weren't meeting needs. And so one of the first places that adopted it and used it heavily and saw the most gain in a hurry was some of our at-risk students. We were able to collaborate with from special ed teacher to grade level teacher. They were filling out forms collaboratively without being in the same places. We were able to get that documentation done. We went to being basically the model in our district of stuff being in on time, stuff being right, and we were turning around kids through intervention and some of the things faster than we had ever done it. And I'll give you a case in point. This year, looking at the accountability scores, our GAC group increased almost 26 points over last year. And I attribute that largely not to Google Classroom or Drive itself, but the fact that we changed our workflow and we changed the method of delivery for resources. We were meeting kids where they needed to be all the time.
I agree totally. Ben, Chase Goff is doing backflips right now. He says, I cannot overstate the importance of putting a Chromebook in the teacher's hands when starting this journey. It is a game changer. So Chase is another school that has seen a lot of growth using digital workflow to collaborate and create greater efficiency and transparency for his team. So he is, and Brandy Hahn also gave you the touchdown sign as well, based on your last answer to her question. So
that's all. And honestly, we put them in more than that. We put them in intervention teachers' hands. 5th grade, I knew was the first place we wanted to go 1-to-1. We were working toward that. 4th grade was the next. So I had an incremental plan. And I'd worked that out with the DTC and the superintendent on how we were going to approach that. And I met some training needs. And honestly, if I'd have put them in the kids' hands first, the teachers would have not felt comfortable. So Chase, you guys are exactly correct. So they're less than $200. You can afford it somewhere. I know it.
So that incremental plan then becomes exponential in terms of the experience that folks are, redesigning and from your teachers to your students. And I always also say, which Heather helped me learn several years ago, also immediately connecting with parents, right? Through Quick and essentially the same digital workflows that you were designing internally also then exponentially expands to your other most important shareholders. Right?
I want to do a quick shout out to you to not depend on the district to provide and have that vision, because sometimes it's hard depending on where you are as a leader in your building, and for you to step up and see that vision in your building and make that happen and have your own plan. I think that's awesome. I think we're starting to see principals pop up doing that. So I think that's a great point that you put the power in your building and made it happen without having to just sit back and wait. You just did it for your teachers and for your students.
The site-based conversations about the budget became quite different. When they realized that some of these things were so vital, we started taking money from other things that weren't so vital. Shrinking the amount of paper we buy each year because we'd rather have Chromebooks than paper. Those type of things. So it can be done. And then what was really nice is when the district saw what we were doing, when they had opportunities to come alongside and help, they did. And so that was a tremendous piece. But including them in the front end of that loop was key to that for sure.
Right. Chase also says it also speaks massively to culture. When the teachers have it and understand it, they feel valued, important, and part of something really special. And I cannot agree more. Good point, Chase.
And that really, back to my year 2 when we redid our vision statement, and really that was the roots of what, Classroom gave us the vehicle to do that. But one of the things that we started to do was, hey, we have some work to do, and I don't care what anybody else is doing. I don't care. And you shouldn't either. You need to care about your kids and you need to care about you. And I said, let's care about each other and let's do what it takes to get it done. And so if that's reimagining the budget to buy things that we think are important, we need to talk about that. We need to do those things. And so we quit looking at all the outside influences that we could, and really started to focus on people. And when we did that, and those conversations about budgets and those conversations about formative assessment, there's a great comment about formative assessment in there. When I took over, we were grading formative assessments. We were grading exit slips and giving them back with grades. That's not a formative assessment. Like Google Classroom changed our assessment structure. We were like, teachers got to the point they were saying, hey, my lesson plan for Tuesday is not right now because of what I did on Monday. Please don't be mad. And I said, are you kidding? I'm doing cartwheel in the hallway.
That's what Brandy Hahn just said. She said, Google Classroom has created a sense of urgency for formative assessment and real-time changes in instruction. And to me, that is the most powerful piece. We have instant data to make decisions about instructional design that allow us to constantly know where our kids are and be able to derive a game plan of where we need to go next without having to grade. And we get so buried. I remember grading exit slips off the Post-it notes. Now with the Google form, you get instant data so you know where to start your lesson the next day. It is truly a game changer, and we can grow kids faster because of these amazing digital tools. Okay, I'll get off that soapbox.
No, we saw that. You're exactly right. And ultimately, that's where I wanted all of that to go, was we were individualizing instruction for students for that very reason. I might have to plug in my laptop real quick. I forgot.
So what better way to introduce teachers to try Google Classroom in their classroom than model it as a principal and kind of let down their guard because they're turning things into you and looking and having that that workflow. I think that's great. So if you have teachers that were reluctant in their classroom, they became comfortable with it, with you supporting them the entire way.
Right. Awesome. That's one thing that we had to do was, it's okay that your lesson plan doesn't look like on Friday where you said it would be. I'm not going to kill you. You know, it's not going to reflect bad on your evaluation. Actually, it reflects better, honestly, because you're meeting kids' needs.
Totally agree. We actually ended up going to living lesson plans using Google Slides. And also we've seen the power of Google Slides to not only create that living feel, the flexibility, but embed YouTube videos so kids have the power of pause and then use those slides to add manipulatives and do checks for understanding. And then when the teacher pushes out their interactive lesson plans via Google Slides to each student in a Google Classroom, every kid has an interactive lesson plan, and it supports self-pacing. So we're really rethinking what is the lesson plan in 2017. It should be fluid. It should be flexible. It can have digital integration with videos and digital manipulatives and checks for understanding. So we're seeing this big change come through the power of these digital tools to help us work smarter, not harder. So yes, I love everything you're saying.
The one check I kind of did is, you know, as kids start to be more informed about their learning, they feel like they own it, like they feel the efficacy, like, you know, they feel better about it. I remember walking down the hall my last year, and I would just ask kids, you know, we start talking about math because no kid really truly likes, well, my son does, but he's not normal. But honestly, like, I'd be like, our math teacher, I would be like, I think like 95% of our kids think they're great at math. The data doesn't say that, but they love it now, and they love the fact that they're learning. And I said, the fact that we've been able to turn this on its end to be able to give them more feedback, we're spending more time one-on-one with them. We really bought back time with some of these digital tools, and we put it where it really mattered most. It was back in.
Totally. My own daughter took her first assessment on a Google form yesterday, and when I saw her after school, she immediately knew her scores. We have to wait for a whole week before she gets her score, and so she said, I said, well, she said, we took it on a Google form today. So we talked the power of immediate feedback to kids as well is another strong attribute of using these tools for instruction. So awesome. Okay. I'll check for some more questions coming through, but Courtney, anything else?
I was just going to talk about one more aspect is the transparency. Heather, you were talking about the lesson plan, and Ben, so often teachers will have amazing lesson plans and it's for the audience of one, that principal. And to know now that you can share that with your students and with the parents and have that work really wrap around and it not just be one person giving you a quick glance, and now all those efforts to truly be maximized. The tools can be powerful.
Not to, but the method we were using for lesson plans, we ditched it, and it was, so they were making him starting for me in any way that they wanted, and I could provide feedback that way as long as they had a couple of certain things, whatever made sense to them. Then they began to share that amongst their team. And that's when I knew that things were starting to grab hold. Is like, it's not just their lesson plan, they're collaborating on pieces like, can I borrow this and can I do this and show me how you do this? And then as teachers in that environment, that innovation happens, learning happens when we're together on all that.
Well, that's amazing. Does anyone have anything else to say? I mean, I hate to wrap up something that's so great and so informative. But what an awesome push of thinking, and to encourage a growth mindset, and just using one tool with Google Classroom can open up all those opportunities for your staff, for their students, for your students. So thank you, Ben. That was awesome. It's such a good show, very inspiring. I hope if you are watching that you have the Google ready to get googly with your staff. But I think something that a key takeaway was for a principal to be the lead learner. And I think even if you're hesitant, if you're a little bit nervous about tipping your toe in the Google water, I like what Ben said, to be that lead learner and show your staff that you're in it with them and you're in it together. So thank you so much, Ben. It was an awesome show.
Yeah. I wanted to, Elaine, we haven't heard much from you today. I know you're getting ready to run in this race, but in McCracken County out there in Paducah, are your principals using Google Classroom to serve as a digital infrastructure for their schools? Are you seeing that out there?
Yeah, I have several principals that are actually using Google Classroom, and I see that it's brought them, the culture of the teachers for sure, together. Definitely been completely agree with taking that workflow from emails that we get bombarded from constantly, and then you can't find them, and then it just gets to be a nightmare. So yes, lots of we have several, I think maybe 4 or 5 that are using Google Classroom. And then of course, then they're using them for smaller things like Google Classroom just for PLC, or Google Classroom just for the different things. So that are in the school, the different groups, but definitely a benefit. Totally agreed with everything that Ben said. So loved it. Would love to even just take a peek at it of his classroom too. So.
And Courtney, I will say this, any principal that I have the fortunate set of circumstances now that if you're a principal and you want some help with this stuff, guess what? I'm email, phone call, well, less email, but phone calls away, whatever it takes. But be glad to talk you through, visit, however we can help. The whole team that we have are able to help you guys with that, especially through a lot of phase 1 trainings. It ties a lot into that. So definitely be thinking about that in ways that we can help support you in this journey.
I think that's a great leadway into the next part. Heather, do you want to talk about how principals and administrators can be supported going forward?
Absolutely. So Ben is the newest member of our digital learning coach team. So along with my support in creating digital workflow, Ben is also there to support as well. And he is Ben.Maynard at education.ky.gov. So we can definitely put you in touch with him. He's also on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you will see that I frequently tag him in things because, like I said, he's my teammate. But both of us are available to pop into a Google Hangout, help you set this up. I know a couple people that tuned in today are brand new, like they literally just got into their Google account. So they're going to need some one-on-one support. So Dr. McCoy, if you need me or Ben, we're here for you. And we'll hop into a Google Hangout and help you get that set up. Like Ben said, it takes about 12 seconds, but for a brand new user, you might be more comfortable if you have someone there with you. We also have on December 6th, the P3 Principal Ed Camp. It's December 6th in Louisville, and we will have Kentucky Go Digital strands where principals like Chase Goff and Melody Stacy, Shelly Clark, Allison Gregory out there in Graves County, some of our principal rock stars who are using these tools every day to lead their schools. We'll be sharing Faith Stroud from JCPS. We have an all-star team. I think Ben might even be able to be there that day to share as well. So we have that. We have more shows coming up, which Courtney's going to mention. So connecting everyone together through these Kentucky Go Digital initiatives should help give you the support that you need as well.
Awesome. So many opportunities. And our next show coming up is Wednesday. It is October 18th. We are live again at 11 a.m. with the great Wes Bradley. He's going to join us again to go over Blogger. So if you can join, that will be another great episode. Just remember to tweet out and do everything with that hashtag and Kentucky Go Digital. We are connecting. We are wanting to create, connect, and share. So until next time, thank you, Ben, for being here. Thank you for the entire Kentucky Go Digital team. And we will see you hopefully on Wednesday. Bye.
Get involved with Kentucky Go Digital. Attend regional events, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Twitter.